What was that about quest? Sorry.
Oh, I just did like a basic quest, 15 iron bars, and it gave me 400 gene points. I'd
Oh
been kind
wow.
of disregarding them previously, but it's like, well, now that I actually have just all of my stuff on my person at all times, doing these quests is actually super worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. That inventory mod does change quite a lot actually in that regard.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, there's the monsters killed by you have a 25% chance of dropping equipment with better effects. I just don't have any goblin hair or insector limbs anymore. I spent them all.
Oh right. What did you spend them on? Just gene mods, or was there
Uh,
like something you were building?
yeah. Gene mods under the thug tree, I believe it was.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I would love it if there was a gene
specifically,
mod that gave you a better chance of finding like fossils when you're mining ore.
yes.
I would
I
100%
was
go for
actually
that.
I was really hoping there would be a mod for that. It's just an extra 10% would probably save us, honestly, a couple hours.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a little cheesy, probably worth it. But yeah, there's no G mods and there's no mods.
There we go.
Okay, what else have I been playing? I guess, yeah, pretty much the only thing I've done this week has just been Creeper World and Ring Fit. I was actually going to ask,
I
what
actually
kind
saw you doing a ring fit actually.
of... Ring Fit is good stuff. What kind of exercise do you generally do? Lifting ferrets?
Juggling ferrets, yeah.
Sorry.
No. To be honest, I think Ares could give me a bit of a run for my money in a tug of war game. As long as he had some solid ground to plonk his feet onto, he'd give me a good old run for it. But generally, resistance training, so strength, lifting, that sort of stuff.
Do you have a home gym or do you like go to a place?
Well, I used to go to a place. I don't have a home gym. I've got weights. So like my workouts have taken a fair downgrade in the sort of workouts I do, or rather the kind of access to equipment. But I've got like I said, I've got weights and stuff, and I've got I actually we fit and little things like that for some cardio stuff. But mostly it's weights, resistance bands. You can do a lot with resistance bands, to be honest.
Yeah, you can.
There's a heck of a lot of stuff you can do with those.
Did when you were in school, like any level of school, did they teach you how to do that stuff, or is it entirely like just self-motivated, self-taught?
When like I was in sixth form and stuff like that, we had gym membership, so we just go down the local gym for part of the week. So like once we hit sixth form, it was like our PE lessons were basically going to the gym.
Okay, I gotta actually back up here. You want to explain the school system where you live? Because for me, we just have grades, kindergarten, which is effectively grade 0 through 12, and then you go to college for another 4 years.
Oh, right, yeah, of course, yeah. Is the whole difference with the American and British school system. Basically, the easiest way that I can describe it to you is my school was Hogwarts.
Okay.
We, like, you know, we had, you kind of have many different types of schools. Like, you didn't tend to have one school that did all of it. So I went to, I'll have to translate. Well, Mama Flant, which is like mother and baby. Like when you're first born, you go with one of your parents, and they kind of like more socialize you with other babies. Really, other than that, then you do a little bit of nursery, which is like so more of the same, but you're starting to learn stuff. Then you go to what on earth just happened there? I attacked something and a cuckoo appeared and threw me off my game. But then you go to primary school, round 4, 5, depending on where you were born in the year, and you stay there till about 10. Then you go to what would probably be the equivalent of high school for you. And in primary school, you just have like, each year you have a class. Just you have one class, and that one teacher teaches you a full breadth of topics. But then in high school, you start doing the whole thing of you have certain classes at different times, and specific teachers for those classes who are specialized in teaching that subject. That's probably the most equivalent to the movie American schools that I'm familiar with. What I see on TV and stuff like that. But there you stay until 16, where you take your GCSE. And that pretty much is the point where you do high school, where you've got a set curriculum of a very wide breadth of topics until 14. Then you hit your electives. So you choose then to kind of narrow your field of study. You keep a core group, like for us, it was English, maths, Welsh, science. Those compulsory. So you'd have separate classes for biology, separate classes for physics, separate classes for chemistry, separate classes for maths, pure maths and statistics, separate classes for English, which would be both English and English Lit, and separate classes for Welsh, which would be both Welsh and Welsh Lit. But because everything was taught through Welsh, if you, like in my school, the Welsh that was taught in Welsh classes was significantly more kind of high-level Welsh. So we would be learning like Old Welsh and stuff like that. We wouldn't just be there learning what we already knew fluently, because that would be a complete waste of time. And you also then choose a bunch of elective classes. So you might choose to study history going forward. Previously, that you got a little bit of history no matter what, but then you would have to select it. Other things like art, again, you had creatives, you had languages. So that was your electives, and then you would study towards your GCSEs on those topics. That would be at 16. So you'd have 2 years of your elective subjects, and at 16... Can I talk with this cuckoo? No, I can't. It's weird. Cuckoo's just randomly appearing everywhere. So yeah, at 16, you would then decide either to continue education, in which case you had 2 options. You could go to a college. So that would be like a modern day apprenticeship sort of stuff, like a tech college, I guess. I think that would be the equivalent in America. Or you would study your A-levels, which would be another 2 years of study, usually in the same school, though sometimes you might go to a different school for it, but typically that was very uncommon. And at that point, you would be in the 6th form. And that's basically your prep work for uni. Your grades in your A-levels dictate what universities you'd be able to go to if you intend to go on to higher education. Or, at 16, you can choose to join the workforce and forgo any further education at that point and just get work experience.
So is that entire setup purely like a Welsh thing, or was it fairly universal across the UK?
By and large, it's universal across the UK, but I have come to understand, as I've grown older, that the sort of stuff that was available for me to study in my school was a bit different from a lot of other people I now know. Like, for example, She-Lab. Like, we've compared like topics that were available in our schools, and like I could study geology, I could study Latin, there was a wide breadth of topics, but she didn't have those same topics. She had certain languages that I didn't. Like, she could study German, we couldn't. We had French, Latin, Spanish. Oh, my axe is broken. Damn it. Okay, well, I guess that's time for me to head back. Also, the history lessons. in my school seem to cover more. It's strange. Like there must be topics that we didn't cover in my school because to make time for the topics that we did, but we can't work out where the gap in my education lies. It's a bit of a weird one.
That's actually kind of a rough topic for me because like I've been low-key studying history with all the current events going on. It's just like, oh yeah, let's actually look up, because this is a lot of this stuff has happened before. Let's look up the hows and the whats and the whatnots, and it's
the amount of times I've been able to say, yeah, well, this has happened before. Well, did you expect something to change? They're like, what? It's happened before? It's like, really?
Yeah, like straight up the flu pandemic of 1918 never covered in any of my schools, like never even mentioned.
It's very telling the sort of topics that don't get covered sometimes, that don't get that don't get taught. It is very telling what ones get left out, I think.
It's problematic because a lot of those are actually things that like almost need to be.
Yeah, well, it's the whole thing. If the history repeats itself, it definitely does if you don't know that it happened before, so you're not aware to watch out for it. I'm a very big believer that to know where we're going, or rather to get where we want to be, you've got to kind of know where you came from. And so, I think I understand, though, to certain degrees, history is written by the victor, and some things the victor doesn't really want to remember. That is in of itself a problem, but it is, again, it's history. It's been happening for a long time. I need to feed my pets some monster meat. I feel a little bit bad about this, but thankfully I'm not on an insecta level, so I don't feel that I'm feeding my centipede other centipedes.
Are you like out of food?
Oh no, my pet was just hungry.
Oh. Because I saved monster meat because it's like one of the not rare resources, but like one of the consumable resources that I actually have very little of.
Oh, right, okay. Do I have any apples, I wonder? No, I don't.
Let me know if
you
need
actually
food,
I do.
Because I've got a silly amount of food.
Oh, I've got a decent amount, I think. When you said, oh, you out of food? I was like, no, I just my monster. And then I looked up at my food bar. I was like flashing red. It's like, oh. Yes, I am out of food, actually. Oops. She laughing in my chat is like, I'm not hearing where Defense Against the Dark Arts appears in this. Well, as it happens, you do remember, though, that, like, in my primary school, one of my teachers was on the Druidic Council of Wales. It's like, yeah, I really did go to Hogwarts though.
That's cool.
It's funny, like when we compare school careers, especially when comparing it with people from America, to be honest. And I discussed like the common rooms and all of that sort of stuff in sixth form, and having the sixth form common room, and I think in their minds it is basically Hogwarts.
So was it like a boarding school situation?
No, this was just a normal public school in Wales.
Huh, but it had common rooms.
Yeah, this is what I mean. It's like, yeah, this is basically Hogwarts. We didn't sleep there, but that was about it. The amount of other similarities are kind of shocking. Or apparently they are kind of shocking. Like, to me, this was very normal, but it's at this point I've come to understand this is not normal for most other places in the world. But yeah, like, for example, we had houses and things like that, and my house was named after a particular Welsh lord. Particularly awesome Welsh lord, I must say. The best Welsh lord, one might say. Always going to be Team Pwyll. Get out of here, you scallywag dog. But yeah, and so the sixth formers would retire to the common room where we would chill out, with by the fire reading some books.
Yeah, this is culture shock for me.
Yeah, no, I see. This is the things I know it is at this point because so many friends I've talked to are like, what?
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
for Americans, the most amount of like group-based identity we had was like who your homeroom teacher was, kind of,
Oh, I need to know.
and also like if you were on a sports team or like belonged to a major club.
I mean, you were pretty much on a sports team as standard in my school. The boys were on a rugby team, the girls were on a netball team. That was it. There was no decision on this. I mean, there really was, but realistically, everyone was on the teams. But yeah, we had houses, four major houses, and we would compete in lots of different ways. The whole point scoring thing from Harry Potter, yeah, that existed for us. It only really came to a head during the Eisteddfod, though, when we would work out, which house would put forward their best candidate to sit on the chair and be chaired, and it's a very interesting education, and it always has amused me the differences, because like I would watch things like Harry Potter and I'd be like, yeah, this is completely normal, and then I'd be having a conversation with someone else and they seem just like wowed and amazed by this idea. I mean, the boarding school aspect seems crazy to me because never did that myself, but everything else seems pretty normal.
Boarding school is kind of common in the US. I
Really?
never went, and I'm glad I didn't, because like most of the people I knew that went to boarding school, there were a couple of people that absolutely needed it because their like home life was rough, but like a lot of them were just like, yeah, it kind of sucks. It's not as fun as everybody made it out to be in like Harry Potter and whatnot. I think in a lot of cases it's just like a lot of kids, ages anywhere from 8 to 18 really don't have any business being on their own in that kind of capacity. You really do need like the family situation to feel stable.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I couldn't work at home anyway, so being able to actually like have a place that is my own that early was super helpful. So I can't exactly, say that it was a bad thing for everybody.
No, there's probably lots of times when it's right, and equally, with everything, it's case by case, I imagine, and sometimes it'll be perfect for someone, and sometimes it'll be exactly the worst possible thing for them.
Unrelated, have you run into a monster that is like a baby roach in this?
Yes, on levels 5 to 9, I think.
It says 0 to 4. I think it did.
Not what I'm thinking about then.
Let me try and figure out where it is. It's I only just baby fly, not baby roach. Where's the oh yeah, no. There's baby cockroach and baby fly. Both are on levels 1 through 4. In the underground somewhere.
They'll probably be in the jungle then. I imagine they'll probably be in.
Yeah, I've been wandering around and I haven't found anything even insectoid down there. So maybe it's in the orange area. I've just been in both zones for a while. I haven't.
She laughed. Why would you do this in my chat right now? She's like, "What? No baby shark?" I was like, "Why? Why have you done this?" No, I expected more from you.
But there's the leader assault aura that increases your movement speed by 15%, and then there's another thing that increases your attack speed by 10%. I was thinking those would be worth investing in. There's a couple of perks that actually increase your movement speed. I was like, how fast can I go in this game? I want to go fast.
Go faster.
Yeah. Did you play much Sonic the Hedgehog when you were growing up, or nah?
Yeah, I love Sonic actually. Well, I never really got into the 3D ones.
Okay, yeah, the 3D ones were where I first got into them because
I played them. I just couldn't get into them as much. I don't know what it was about the 2D ones. I think it was just. I don't know.
wasn't the
Sometimes
Sonic you were
when
expecting.
people, well, it wasn't even that, because like the first Sonic I played was Sonic 3, which was a 2D one, but I didn't play it much before I had the chance to play the 3D ones. But I think when the levels are only 2-dimensional, you can make quite interesting levels without leaning into the gimmick of 3-dimensional space. Like I think the level design suffered a little bit, at least in the first iterations of the 3D Sonics. It was like, look at this, it's a 3-dimensional level. Look how novel is this? And then because of that novelty, it's like we don't really need to try too hard, because look, it's 3D. They're gonna be wowed by the fact it's 3D on its own. That's the way I felt about it anyway. That the sort of comparison. I found that the 2D Sonics were a little bit more interesting in their level design. Either because they had to work around 2 dimensions, or because they could just focus on the 2 dimensions more, because there was a whole dimension they weren't having to think about. I don't know how it worked, but that was the kind of feeling I got. They just didn't seem to be as interesting for some reason. Right, let's have a look at my gene mods. Can I analyze? Oh, I can.
It's not exactly in the same vein. I was playing the Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer the other day.
Oh, okay.
And
what was that like?
Kind of going back to re-examine a lot of the older games that I played when I was younger and being like, was this actually as awesome as I remember it being? And the answer is usually a very depressing, like, no. I was playing it. Playing Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer as a kid, I was just like, oh man, this game is so cool. Like, look at this 3D. It's amazing. It's like perfect. And I went back and I was playing it yesterday and was not even paying attention, crashing a bunch and being like, huh, this is both really easy and kind of dull.
Oh,
I
that's
felt
a
bad
shame.
because it's like, yeah, it's like that loss of nostalgia is actually a bit of a blow, more than I was expecting. I have some. I guess the one plus side is I didn't really play a whole lot of the Pod Racer game, just because it was that game that was always on at Target that I wanted to play, but it was never at the Blockbuster, so I couldn't rent it.
Right.
Was there much of a rental system in your area?
Well,
no, not really.
There was when I was really, really little. Like I remember. I remember kind of following one of my oldest first cousins around, like as my designated older brother figure, and into the rental shops, and he'd be renting things. But the time that I was of an age where I could, pretty much it was dying. That whole rental market was kind of going down, and I didn't really have money to rent things anyway. So I tended not to really get involved in it too much, but there was, but I think it was on its way out by the time that I was old enough to really pay any kind of attention. I take it with you it was alive and well.
Sort of. It was. Well, okay. Renting was like good up until about 2002, and then after that it was just kind of nothing.
Right. Can I get something good on this, I wonder? Please be with me, luck. And thunk. Woohoo! That isn't so bad. I said woohoo prematurely. I woohooed because I did actually get a golden effect. I only got 3 out of the 4 possible, but one of them was gold, and one of them was silver tier, so it was like a pink and an orange. But neither one of them actually made this drill that much better. They've made it so that I'll probably never have to repair it before I replace it with something much better. On the plus
I've got
side.
that with a dagger.
Oh, really?
I bought a golden. Yeah, I bought a golden dagger from one of the shops, and I was like, I'm gonna upgrade this with the 2 gold bars that I have. It's got plus 1 billion durability and like a couple other things. I'm like, well, this is kind of nice. Now I don't have to worry about this. Probably not actually that good, but still.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is this drill is not really any good at all. The only thing it really has going for it is how accurate it is. Like, it is actually very accurate. Whereas when I'm trying to use my pickaxe, I will demolish all the things around the thing I'm trying to gather as well, which is not always what I want to do. But with the drill, it's very, very accurate. Anyway, what was your school life like then? I take it you didn't have any kind of house identity like I did.
No. Well, I especially didn't because I went to how many different schools? 7, 8?
Okay.
My dad is still a fairly renowned scientist within his field,
Right.
and so he keep getting different offers at different places that paid a lot better than the others. And I was never particularly attached to any of the places that I lived, so my parents would just be like, "So do you want to move across the country in a month?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?"
Right.
So we did that a ton. So I especially had zero connection to almost any place I went. But from what little I experienced, the only place in the U.S. That actually had an interesting education system was North Carolina. Weirdly enough, it was both kind of broken by a number of odd policies that effectively pigeonholed everybody into doing the standardized testing. But for some reason, they balked against that and were like, "We're gonna offer courses on graphic design to middle schoolers because why not? We have an art teacher that's willing to do this. Let's break the mold a little bit." That actually turned out to be really useful because
Yeah,
I never looked into making graphic novels of my own up until that point. I'd done it idly as a kid, not realizing that it was a syndicated thing. I knew comics existed, but I didn't know how you did it. And so this teacher is just "Yeah, I'm gonna bring in a bunch of graphic designers that live in the immediate vicinity and have them talk to us while we make comic books and UI design and a bunch of other things." So I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." I moved to Massachusetts almost immediately after. And the education system was like, "We have a lot of money. We're going to spend it all on the football stadium." And they never win. And it's like, what?
Right.
This seems wasteful. Did your rugby team ever win?
Oh, quite a lot, actually.
That's good.
There was this weird thing that happened, and it was weird enough that all of the teachers in my high school commented on it. And that is, for some strange reason, and it really was a statistical anomaly, my year in primary school, we were enormous. Just out of nowhere. All, there wasn't one boy who went to my primary school in my year who was shorter than 6 feet. And most of the girls were towards 6 feet, and quite a decent amount of them were over it. So our rugby and netball teams were just dominating for a long time. We weren't 6 feet when in primary school, but by the time we were in secondary school, we just shot up. And it was just this really bizarre thing. There was always this joke, what on earth was in the water that year, or in the milk? What was coming down from those mountains? We need to find out, bottle it, and replicate it. But our rugby team did quite well. And it was really strange as well because the high school obviously had a very large catchment area of primary schools. So they were, the primary schools from all over the place, from several different valleys, all came together in the end in that one high school. So you went from a primary school that might, across all of the years, from ages 5 to 10 have only maybe 100 to 300 people there, to a high school with nearing 1,000 people.
It was overall, across every level,
overall across several years, not all in one year.
Okay, because
that would have
I went to a high school with about 1,000 people, but I had a person that went to my university that their high school had 1,000 per year level, and it was just like,
Wow.
how do you do that?
How
The
do you
answer
even
is,
socialize with your peer group at that point?
I don't think he did. His social skills definitely suffered because he was a weird dude.